Exactly.
Hi, my name is Tyler Lemke, and today we will be discussing these guys right here, oxygen sensors, and how they deal with engine performance and fuel trim, and some fun stuff like that. So, first I'll explain what an oxygen sensor is. It is found in the exhaust system, located in multiple positions, normally one before the cat converter and one after the cat converter, depending on how many banks you have. Banks is pretty much exhaust manifolds. So if you have a V6, you're going to have two exhaust manifolds or two headers, however you want to say it. And the exhaust manifold attached to the number 1 cylinder is going to be considered bank 1, and the exhaust manifold attached to the other side of the engine is going to be, the other one is going to be considered bank 2. Sensor 1 is going to be the first sensor in the series closest to the cylinder head. Number 2 is usually going to be after the cat converter or right at the end of the cat converter. Sometimes it can get a little confusing with the O2 sensor directly on the converter, which one is before or after, but if it's the first one in line after the cylinder head, it's going to be sensor 1. O2 sensors read the amount of oxygen in your exhaust gas. It takes a comparison of the atmospheric air and the amount of oxygen in it and the amount of oxygen that is unburned in your exhaust gases as it exits your combustion chamber. This is going to be displayed in your live data when you scan your vehicle as a bunch of different names. You can have 1.1, 1.2, oxygen sensor, bank 1, sensor 2, but the numbers are going to be the bank and then the sensor. So right here on my scan tool, I have 1.1 short trim, 1.1 long term. Oh, short term and long term. So we've got short trim and long trim. Short trim is going to be an immediate fix for what the O2 sensor is reading. So if you've got a positive number, say 5%, then that means the car is adding fuel. And if you have a negative number, negative 10%, then the car is actually adding less fuel. So shortening something called your pulse width. So the amount of time the injector is open is called its pulse width, whether it be 5 milliseconds, 2 milliseconds, 1.5 milliseconds. They're going to change the amount of milliseconds that the injector is open. If it's open longer, you get more fuel. If it's open shorter, you get less fuel. The oxygen sensor is going to pretty much tell the injector, or the PCM, which tells the injector how long to be open. We've got the scan tool plugged into this Chrysler Pacifica, and we're scanning the data right now. And with the short-term data right here, I am coming up with a short term of negative 4.1 and a long term of 3.9%. So long term, this car is adding fuel. If the car is adding fuel, then that means that it has a lean mixture. A lean mixture is too much oxygen or too much air. Lean mixture can be caused by some sort of vacuum leak, letting in more air than necessary. And then a rich mixture is too much fuel getting in, whether it be a stuck injector or too much fuel pressure or something of that sort. And we pretty much diag the car using these numbers. Our long term tells us overall picture of what is happening, such as a vacuum leak or something like that, and then the short term tells us the immediate. The short term number is going to go up and then down and then up and then down, because the short term is going to add fuel to fix a lean mixture immediately, and then the lean mixture is going to get a little rich, so it's going to take a little bit away, and then it's going to add a little bit, and then it's going to take some away. So the number is going to go up and down and up and down. Not too drastically, but you will see a change from up to down constantly as time goes on, whereas the long-term trim is going to stay constant and maybe change a little bit as time goes on, but that's just more of a bigger picture of how it's looking in an extended period of time. Oxygen sensors have two things called loops. Have something called a loop, which is pretty much on or off. Open loop means that it is the computer is not using the O2 sensor, and the car has a preset unchanged rich mixture. So when your car is in open loop, for example, your car when it first starts cold, it goes into open loop. When you have wide open throttle and you're flooring it, that's open loop. And what that does is the computer dumps a specific amount of gas into the vehicle more rich than lean, because being lean is actually somewhat dangerous. Being rich, you know, you're just unburning fuel, you're wasting fuel and ruining your cat converter. Cat converters don't like unburned fuel. And closed loop is when the computer does take the cues from the O2 sensor and responds by changing the air-fuel ratio, opening the injector for longer or opening it for shorter periods of time to add or subtract the amount of fuel that the engine is receiving overall. Rich is less oxygen or extra fuel, and then lean is when the sensor is reading more oxygen or more air and less fuel. And then we can determine where to go from there. You know, if we're reading something rich, we can determine high values is going to say rich. So if a vehicle is running rich, we can go ahead and say, all right, the vehicle is either getting too much fuel or not enough air. Not enough air with the regular amount of fuel is going to be read as too much fuel, or too much fuel with a regular amount of air is going to be read as too much fuel or rich. A lean condition is going to be read as too much air or not enough fuel. So if you've got a lean mixture, you want to chase down vacuum leaks, make sure that you are not getting an unwanted amount of air into your combustion chamber, or you want to check and see you got too much air or not enough fuel. If you're not getting enough fuel, you could have a fuel pump that is not producing enough fuel pressure, which would in turn create not enough fuel leaving the injector when the pulse width is open and closed. And then when you have a rich mixture, you want to see, why am I getting too much fuel or why am I not getting enough air, whether it be a blockage or a stuck open injector causing too much fuel to leak in because it doesn't have time to, it doesn't close, so therefore it's just constantly dumping. So you've got your O2 sensor reads the oxygen in your exhaust, upstream and downstream. Upstream before the cat, sensor 1 usually, and then downstream after the cat, sensor 2 usually. You've got your banks. Bank number 1 is attached to cylinder 1. Bank number 2 is going to be the other set of headers. If you have it, if you only have a 4-cylinder, you probably only have one bank, which is the one set of exhaust manifold that is going to have one O2 sensor on it. Right before the cat, it's going to be sensor 1, bank 1. And then after the O2 sensor reads the oxygen, sends it to the PCM, and then the PCM makes adjustments to the fuel due to what the oxygen sensor is reading. If the oxygen sensor isn't being used, say you just cold started your car or you're flooring it, then the oxygen sensor is null and void. The computer disregards and sets a preset rich mixture for your car to run off of. All right, thank you for tuning in.